Well, hello and welcome, my friends. I know it's been a while since I posted a actual full-length video. This one actually might be pretty long, as it seems like I have a lot to talk about, but mainly I wanted to... Wow, that wrecked everything there. Mainly, I wanted to discuss some of the aspects of non-duality. And one of the reasons why I wanted to cover some of this is because if you are a follower of non-duality or have seen a lot of videos on it, you may have noticed that a lot of the things, because they're not conceptual, are very difficult to understand. And I think some of the people who do those videos don't really take into account where people are coming from when they're trying to explain it. And I wanted to see if maybe I could clarify some of that. I'll sure give it a shot. So let me start at the beginning. I mean, everybody, of course, in the so-called spiritual community, is working on their personal growth, working on their spiritual growth, their personal expansion, and I think in general their evolution. And I think if you look at the end point of everything, I think eventually mankind, the whole idea is to evolve, just like everything else in nature evolves. And part of that includes, I guess, self-realization and recognizing who you really are. And of course, by that I mean not who you are, who your personality is, or who you think that you are based on how you were brought up and what people have told you and what you have learned in your knowledge base and this character that you portray, but who you really are on a deeper level. And so if self-realization at that level is the end goal, then of course we're asking ourselves, well, how do we get from here to there? And I think because we have always lived in this system where to get somewhere you have to take these classes or you have to go up these levels, first grade, second grade, college, you get a degree, you got to take some more classes to get another degree. And this is how we've learned to live, how we've learned to expand. I think that it creates sort of a misnomer there, because in the area of self-realization, that may not necessarily be the way you might go about it, because it isn't so much about gaining things and getting this and getting this and getting that, as it is about reducing, tearing down, removing things. And the pace with which that we do that and the way with which we do that can, of course, vary in many different ways. And why various different ways is because we're all coming from a different place, different upbringing, and what we've studied so far, and where we feel we are in the universe, how much we are dedicated to expanding and growing, and some of the methods that we use. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to bag on any spiritual teachings. I've got, some 100 videos, some of which would not really apply to where I'm at right now. But they did at the time, and they hopefully you got something out of them. I mean, life as a teacher, you probably could get more out of watching my cat than watching me, but he refuses to do videos. But anyway, I guess my point is, I kind of think that the end goal is probably somewhere in the area of non-duality, because that is where you are really realized and you really recognize that everything is one. Everything is a single entity, non-dual, not two. Okay, now that I've at least gotten to non-duality, let's cut to the chase here. And what I really wanted to talk about was, if you watch some videos on non-duality, you may be confused. And you may be confused when non-dual teachers or speakers will say things like, there is no you. You are an illusion. Everything that you experience is an illusion. Now, this perspective may make some sense for someone who's fully realized, but I think it confuses a lot of people and may turn you off to the whole concept of non-duality, fully self-realized or enlightened, whatever you want to call it. Because we don't see ourselves that way. We don't see ourselves as an illusion. We are actually living these lives day to day, experiencing this day to day, and to say, well, I'm just an illusion, doesn't make any sense. But let's think of it in terms of this. Your character and the person you are in this world is real. And you do these things and feel like you're making these decisions, but they are decisions based on what you've learned and how you respond to things in the outside world. Now, even people who are fully realized still have to respond in the outside world unless they're monks or hidden away somewhere, and that's not a bad thing, and it's not a invisible thing, and it's not an illusion. It's just how we respond. But in fact, what they're talking about is oftentimes our concept of ourselves is nothing but our thoughts and our mind. And our thoughts and our mind are a function of the body. The mind goes and it chit chats and it talks and it does all kinds of things, and you don't really have any control over it. You may quiet it down, you may ignore it like I do. I found about 90% of the stuff that goes through my mind is just so much bullshit. So I kind of just spend a lot of time ignoring it. You use your mind when you need it for certain things, but the rest of it is just sort of wasted thought. Thoughts about the future, thoughts about the past. It is an illusion because it's not real. The real is what you have right now. This very moment is real. And that very moment is moving so quickly you can't pin it down. So when they're talking about an illusion, that's really what we're talking about here, is that the concepts that we put together, it's an illusion because none of it's real. Okay, so I hope that that's a little bit more understandable in that respect. Number two, and this is kind of an important one. Pretty much in all non-duality videos, you're going to hear people say there's nothing that you can do to get yourself from here to there. Now, what they're basically saying is that you can do things that might encourage your dropping of the things that you consider yourself, and you're dropping this sort of self-image, and you're letting a lot of things go in your belief system, and there are things that you can do that may encourage that, but 90% I think of the people who are self-realized weren't looking for it at the time. They'd either been seeking and doing all these things to a certain point where they realize this is great, but it's not really getting me anywhere, and they threw up their hands and gave up on the whole thing. Or they had an intuitive sense that their personality was not the deep I, the real self, but kind of ignored it most of their lives until all of a sudden, something happened that sort of shocked them into it, and then and not necessarily in a happy way. I mean, it might have been a trauma, might be something that they certainly something they did not expect. Now, does this mean they regret now being in that state of full self-realization? No, but it does come with its share of trauma if you get it in a sudden way such as that. I think probably most people get it in a lot more subtle way. I think when I look at the people who are self-realized, it does seem to be sort of a scale where they don't just pop into it. It's sort of a growth thing. Like, the more stuff that you're dropping off, the more you realize, and you drop off some more stuff, and the more you realize. The next thing you know, you are finding things look totally different to you, and you experience things differently, and even how you feel about people and the world starts changing. And this is subtle, but this is the pattern. And like I say, we're not living in if we're not living in the linear, and we're not so hung up on step by step, this is the natural way to evolve, is to drop some of these beliefs, drop some of these things that you believe are true, give up the search, and allow your life to move in the fashion that it naturally is supposed to move. And you guys, I know you've heard me say drop your beliefs before, and I guess the reason why I've said it before and why I insist to include it in every video is because I think that your belief system is the one thing that can really hold you up. I think mostly because if you're in a state where you believe something and you're very firm about believing that, then you're not open to whatever else may be possible. And let's face it, I don't think any of us agree that anybody necessarily knows anything about what's really going on with the universe. Even enlightened people will tell you, I don't know anything. I think it's our sort of desire to have knowledge and know things that is really, rather than feeding us, it's starving us of being open to what is. So this idea of doership becomes kind of a moot point because there's nothing you can really do except maybe undo some of the things, some of the beliefs, and some of the things that keep you from understanding who this deeper self really is, and who my authentic self is, and why maybe I have been protecting my understanding of that for so long. And for the most part, we protect ourselves out of fear, and we don't like the fact that life could be a free fall and something that could happen without me planning for it. But in fact, that's exactly what it is. And this is why a lot of people are very disappointed, because they spend a lot of time planning and doing things what they consider just right, and so things will work out, and they don't want anything to slip. And when things slip, they don't understand why that happened. And the reason why that happens is because life doesn't depend on your planning. I remember seeing this movie. It was one of those God movies with Morgan Freeman and I think Steve Carell or something. I mean, Morgan Freeman was God, and he was asking him to build an ark. And of course, his response to building an ark, Steve Carell, was, well, yeah, I've got these other things planned to do. And the Morgan Freeman character just starts laughing. And I think that's significant. I mean, let's face it, most of the things that happen in our lives, if you look back, you think, boy, I didn't expect that. Well, I didn't see that coming. But it did come, and you learned from it, or you didn't, and you moved on. And it's like you really need to be open to anything that happens, because in our lifetime, we're all going to experience everything that's necessary for us to expand, to evolve. And as I say, your eventual point is to be fully self-realized. Well, this is a starter, I guess, talking about this topic. I'd love to hear some comments from you or what you think about this. I did want to put in one last tip here, and that is, in your path, along your path, and in living your life, as something comes up that either triggers you, or you didn't like the way you responded to it, you didn't really understand it, maybe not at that very second, but as soon as you can, stop and take note of how that felt in the body, and follow that feeling and see where that's really coming from. Because oftentimes some of the things that we're triggered by over and over again are things that we really need to sort out. It's like a calling. And sometimes it gets louder and louder until you stop and say, well, let me look at that. What is affecting me? What is it in me? What is my belief system? What is the thing I need to drop, okay, to get over that hurdle and expand just a little bit further? I just want to add that, because I think if you feel you want to do anything, that seems to me to be a very productive thing to do. So thanks again for watching. I will have more on this topic later, but let me know in your comments what you think about it, and maybe we'll add some other aspects of this to maybe further clarify. Thanks so much.